Hello everyone, it's Layback Launcher here. Today we're not going to be doing any actual missions. Someone recently dropped a comment on one of my videos asking that I do an overview of my HQ, generals, who to buy, who not to buy. A lot of channels have done this and I have made HQ videos in the past, but that was a while ago and my HQ has drastically changed since then, as I'm sure yours has. So let's take a look at my HQ. You can see I have 42 out of 43 generals. Some of them are free generals that you can get, like Wainwright, Schmidt, Huber, and Helfrich. Others are premium generals that I've bought in the past, like Katukov, Arnim. I got him for $1. If you could get that, I think it was something like a battle pass or something. You got a lot of medals and resources, and you can also get Arnim all for like $1. Pavlov you get for free. De Gaulle, I still intend to train him up to get this firepower blockade ability, but that is on pause since I got Patton about a month ago when he became available, a month or two ago when he became available. And I made a video about choosing the trainable generals. You'll see that some generals can be trained using these scepters and swords. You can get them for free every month, but you want to get 2 of the scepters every month, which is quite annoying. These are the generals that can be upgraded. I did a quick overview of it, but Patton was added into the mix. If you don't want to use your batons, I recommend going for Bock or De Gaulle. Bock because he's kind of just a discount version of Patton. And he does have a bonus in other ways in which he improves the critical output of nearby friendly forces, which is actually quite useful in the challenge conquests particularly, but can be a bit overkill for some other missions. Especially when you have really huge maps like that have just been added. The Eastern Europe one, if you remember, check out the Rise of the Scorpion Empire videos. I dropped them fairly recently too, before the first round of conquests. So I dropped those conquests, but you can see that the man, I lost my train of thought. Bach is a good pickup. He can still be a capable tank commander, but I just think that Patton is a bit more balanced. He can theoretically do more damage on his own. He is more resistant since he does. If he has high morale, which pairs nicely with inspiration, then he has his defensive bonus up. He'll be doing a lot of damage, especially more against elite units. And since my style of play is more send the generals off on their own, establish maybe 2 or 3 main directions of advance, main axes of advance, and then try to have them be a balanced split between my generals. You know, Patton and Guderian can kind of be their own axis of advance, because you can see Guderian has an incredibly high probability of getting critical attacks. Do remember that it's sort of like actually not in this case, because Guderian does have a 100% chance. It does stack up. This is the rest of my HQ. These are my starters. So I've organized it in, actually let's take a quick look at just the organization, what shows up when you actually want to put your generals down in the field. I've organized them by the generals that I find that I think I use most often. And I've also done it by category. So the first 2 rows of generals are, you can see, kind of split up between tank and artillery. Patton, Guderian, these Konev, Brook, Weygand. He's fairly new to the mix. I only got him once he was released. Should have picked him up even earlier. I waited too long. He's a very capable tank commander. I quite like using him, especially now that I have this Iron Wings medal, which for some reason incorporates both Air Force and fortification. I'm not quite sure what's up with that. But he's great for just, being a juggernaut. You send him on his own axis. He doesn't take that much damage. With logistics and such, he is putting out a lot of good damage. And he can tank a lot because he has additional health and additional defense. Women, I picked him up a few years ago during the Warzone and Frontier era. He was very powerful then. You can check out those early videos. That's what got me started off with the channel and what's keeping me going. And I mean, that someone actually reached out from those early Warzone and Frontier videos and said, hey, I actually find your videos really helpful. Do you have like any more tips and tricks? And that's what sort of keeps me motivated to keep on making these videos. That maybe just one or two of you guys, if even some of my videos don't get that many views. If I get a 10% success rate of saving you time and money and having new perspectives and maybe enjoying the game in a different way, then that is time well spent in my opinion. So yeah, that's women. I've got them configured out. I used them in the last conquest videos. I'll probably continue to use them because with the way power creep is gone, I mean, just take a look at the general that's currently in the shop. Look at Chernikovsky. This man is wild. That's a really powerful tank commander, and you can get him for the same price as Whitman. And I think he's more powerful than Whitman because he doesn't have Tide of Iron, so you can drop Inspiration on him, or you can drop Inferior Victory on him. Hell, Crossfire or something you can put Fortification on him too if you want. I'm glad that they added Fortification into the game. And he's the same price as Whitman was. Osborne is the same price as Whitman was. And you can see how absolutely busted Osborne was. I think I mentioned him in a couple of my more recent videos when he was in the shop. Abrams is better than Whitman. You know, now Guderian is better than Whitman with his elite ability. I'm glad that Guderian is universally accessible, as is Rommel, if you put him on an elite unit. But even just, I would even say in most circumstances, I'd pick Vegand over Whitman. So I'm not really happy with how Whitman has been power creeped out. I'm not really happy with how Katukov has been power creeped out, though he still is quite useful with his armor tactic expert ability. But unfortunately, I have been, since I wasn't using Katukov, Arnim, or Whitman very often in my prior videos, which were often talking about events where you have very limited general availability, commander availability. You only can spawn 12 or 14 or 16 of them. So I removed I just stripped all the ribbons off of my premium generals and consolidated them on my more free-to-play generals. As you can see, I have all of my 2, 4, 6, let's say 9 or 10 top commanders that I, always are the more go-tos are already maxed out on ribbons. But you can see, when I'm trying to drop down Katukov in my own time, or if I somehow manage to use Arnim in whatever scenario, they don't have the ribbons for it. I've consolidated them too much. But I'm close to getting a bit more balance. So that's the first tier of generals. You can see the second tier, it's, my backup generals. So you have, secondary or tertiary, even maybe quaternary tanks. If it's a really plains map, then I'd use Monty for his plains ability. These guys are my sort of backups, or my primary backups if I'm not using Whitman. These are some of my backup artillery commanders. It has to be a conquest for me to go that deep. Here is Yamamoto. Now we're approaching, this is the artillery section. Now this is the air and economics section. So from Yamamoto down to Sikorsky here. Yamamoto, we'll take a look, is my primary air commander. I recently swapped out early warning on him for inferior victory. Even when he's on the Enterprise, that thing has so much health that it doesn't take that much damage. That it takes a lot to take it down, especially with defense ribbon and fighting spirit kicking in from time to time. So I figured, why not, if there's conquests that have a lot of helicopters, or there's additional events that have a lot of air power necessity, then it would be nice to have Yamamoto to be transferable onto a helicopter as well. Fighting spirit applies whether you're on land or at sea. So this is Yamamoto. You probably, if you're an end game player or like a late mid game player, I would say you might have access to Yamamoto, but this is my go-to configuration for him. Halsey is my backup Enterprise commander. It's going to take me a long time until I make him my primary Enterprise commander, but I saw fit to upgrade him since I do use him very often and see him staying in my HQ for the long term. So when you upgrade generals, always be asking yourself, do I expect that what role do I expect this general to fit? How complementary are they? And I feel like a good exhibition of that is, we'll go back to the air commanders later and the infantry commanders. are my Navy generals. Here you see a few distinct roles. So Yamaguchi, you probably have Yamaguchi because of that naval assault ability. Really sweet. I like that they added some really powerful, but still reasonably balanced free-to-play commanders for everyone to access. Darlan was a nice addition. But you can see Darlan, kind of more of an attack slash group, kind of an attack dog since he boosts himself by 20. Yamaguchi, attack dog. You know, I can send him into the whole writhing mess of the enemy, and he'll still be fine with that healing ability. But Raider, I've set him up to be the Juggernaut. So he has early warning and rumor and sailor. So I intend to put him in the middle of the enemies and do a lot of damage and demoralize them when I send Raider off and on his own towards a group of surface combatants. Dornitz is configured around group play, so Wolf Pack, Fighting Spirit. Honestly, thinking of switching early warning out for something else, but for the life of me, I can't think of what. Not rumor. You know, oftentimes he gets put on a double stacked cruiser. Ground tactics only works for the army. Don't need any of this stuff. He already has depot ship. Would be nice if we could swap that out. Depot ship has limited usefulness in later modes. Like, don't need night raid since he's gonna be playing with the group. He'll be healing up. He won't be taking that much damage, so I don't need him to be that survivable. Yeah, honestly, like the only thing I can think of is maybe Sailor, but if he's playing with the group, then why not keep him survivable and keep him healing up the group? I do want one naval commander with Fighting Spirit. Nimitz is more of an attack dog. I'm thinking of swapping Sailor out on him. Maybe get inspiration since that could make him into like an actual attack dog. No, I do not have another naval one. And you can see he's fallen pretty deep into my rotation since he only has a bronze naval medal. Ikawa also configured for group play since he has Wolfpack and you can't move that off of him. I do have an extra set of infantry medals that includes the victory medal. It also includes the assault medal. It includes another patriotic medal, and it's another knight medal. You can see that exhibited on MacArthur here with my infantry stash. So that's my premium content. Kautukov, Arnim, set of infantry medals, and most importantly Whitman. And then finally you have Horton, who I replaced Nagumo with since Horton has a bit more speed. Horton's free, you can get him for free. I highly recommend putting Rumor on him. Upgrade early warning all the way. Upgrade his health a bit. Upgrade his mobility. I'm not focusing on attack right now. I wanted him to be mobile and survivable, which is why I focused on upgrading early warning and Rumor first. I do currently have the attack on Pearl Harbor event, so I wanted to have at least one or two Rumor naval generals to be able to. I start off with the hard mode since I've already completed the easy modes. I've liked that they added the sweep function. You want to get rid of Fushida early. You can see how really powerful he is on a fully maxed out Akagi. So I wanted a naval commander in time for this event. Two of them, preferably, that I could send up to Fuchida and knock him into chaos with the Rumor. So that's why I reinvested into Horton instead of Govorov, and why I swapped out Nagumo for Horton, because Horton is more survivable with early warning built in. So yeah, that's sort of the idea you want to have. I think a good example of assigning roles exhibited through my naval park. You can see that MacArthur is designed to be an attack dog. Meretskov designed to be an attack dog. It's infantry. They only have a range of 1. They cannot return fire, so you need guerrilla on them to be survivable. Malinovsky configured to be for group play with his decoy in strike. I'm not quite sure if crowd tactics works at the same time. I should do a quick statistical test for that, as I did for De Gaulle, but you didn't see that. Let's get back to the air commanders. So Yamamoto, air commander. Arnold, also an air commander since he has Rumor and these abilities. Why not put him on a helicopter, give him inferior victory? Doolittle, another helicopter commander. He's more for use outside of attacking cities. If I'm going to be fighting in places where it's more open and there's not, and the cities are more spread out, then I would be using Doolittle since he does not have carpet bombing. Chenault, my primary economic commander, but he is also, I don't know, maybe I should swap out carpet bombing on him since he really most of the time, I'd say 75% of the time out, or maybe 90% of the time outside of conquests, he doesn't really attack cities. He just sits there providing an economic benefit. Would be nice to give him some industry. Yeah, I mean, I could just put that medal on him anyway, but it would be upgrading industry is really expensive. Upgrading these kinds of things in general, I think, is really expensive. Where is the? Yeah, you can see it's a 100. It would cost like 470, 550 something to get that last upgrade of industry, and look what you're getting out of it. Just 2 industry. It's not worth it. Technology maybe, because technology is a much more limited resource, I think, at the beginning of missions, especially if you're a smaller country or doing a campaign event where you don't have a lot of access to technology centers in the cities. Having Chenault there is good. It's also nice to have a 2-pronged or even 3-pronged economic and technological ability, and that's where Dowding comes in. He's configured to be an artillery sitting in the city, but he's also an excellent air commander, so you could put him on a helicopter if you have an extra one sitting in the city. And Kesselring is also configured to be an attack dog helicopter commander that can focus in the cities. Unfortunately, architecture is a huge drain on him, and he is pretty expensive. You can see I haven't upgraded him all the way. Sikorsky, my tertiary economic commander. Unfortunately, I don't have another economic and technology expert, but whether he's on a helicopter or on an artillery, as he intends to be, it seems by Easy Tech, he will be doing extra damage in the city. And I did give him did spend 80 medals to give him an extra 4 Air Force attack just for that challenge conquest. Higuchi kind of fell down on the chart. He was intended to be MacArthur's replacement until Meretskov and Malinovsky came along. Unfortunately, Yamashita and Rundstedt have fallen by on the wayside for most missions. However, in Conquest, they're still quite useful since they have Rumor and Guerrilla. I also seriously considered upgrading Rundstedt at some point because that Iron Will ability makes him receive less damage, and he can activate Provocation at a potential maximum 80% chance. You can still put Raider on him. The problem with spending the batons on an infantry commander is the only time it would be actually used to its full effect, and a god tier infantry commander would be half of the time on a rocket infantry when you activate its ability and it has a range of 2. Otherwise, it's just all infantry units have a range of 1, and that could be useful on the Brandenburgers. So if it has a range of 1, you're going to be attacked, but you might not be able to counterattack and activate this ability. It's when you're attacked by the enemy. It still makes him tanky, but infantry is squishy. And the only time you would get the full benefit of the infantry is when it's on the rocket artillery and you activate its ability. Otherwise, it just won't be doing that much damage if you keep it on the front line. Provocation is nice, but then it highlights Rundstedt as the commander. If you have a group of vulnerable allies, whether they're your own units or an allied force, an AI allied force, then Provocation could be useful. Putting on a Brandenburger and having 2 80% chances to trigger Provocation is nice, but you still have to keep it close to the front line and you won't be doing that much damage. I'd rather have someone like Patton or De Gaulle or Bach just doing their own thing, demoralizing enemies, dealing massive damage, that they can keep it up. Indeed, I'm still really thinking about De Gaulle as my next tank commander. EasyTex did say that they would be leaving 2 more bronze commanders to be trainable. So, I mean, that will come in April. They'll also make resources tradable finally for potential Elite Force units. If you have any extra Elite Force units or any extra resources, you might be able to convert them to other Elite Force units. That would be really nice because I'd like to transfer some of these T-44 and Pershing medals into the Abrams. Abrams looks good. Increased defense by 30%. Counter critical attack probability goes up. Ignores 30% of the defense. That would be good with Rommel or Weygand or any other commanders. Upgrading the priest. I did recently pick up the Stuka zu Faust. That's level 5 now. I will not be using that ability in videos though, since it took me this long to upgrade it. I'm assuming you guys have not upgraded it either. That sort of principle applies to any other unit that may be upgraded beyond the average placement. So I think another one that comes up fairly often is the Enterprise. I have a level 5 Enterprise. I unlocked that fairly recently. So I'm assuming that you guys don't have a level 5 Enterprise. You do not have an extra 3 aircraft attack points, and I tried to limit myself from using that just to keep it accessible for all of you guys. I don't think that really goes for anything else. When I upgrade the Hawkeye, when I get the Phantom Force, I've been pretty lucky with the pieces for it thus far, just from the rewards that you can get from the event. Where's the event page? There we go. You know, you can get... Bro, where? Here's a page for the event rewards. I don't know, I'm bugging right now. My apologies. My brain is a blender at the moment. I'm operating on little sleep. Let's continue back to clean up the HQ. I think we've really wrapped up. And you know, these at the very end are the generals that I don't use very often. So it saves me some time when I'm in the mission. I know, you know, the general rules and there's a general order to how my HQ is structured. So when I'm distributing my generals, it's a much smoother and accelerated process. In general, when it comes to buying generals, you have to think about what role do I find myself needing most often. So if you need, I found myself for that, for some of the naval missions, I found, having a survivable rumor commander or having a survivable juggernaut with rumor or something like that is useful, which is why I dropped rumor and picked up raider, dropped Nagumo and picked up raider and Horton. I don't really need Nagumo to be an attack dog. I already have Yamaguchi Darlan for that. I already have a couple of naval commanders with Wolfpack, so I don't really need any more of that. When it comes to infantry commanders, think about now you have elite units. Which commander gets put on elite units? What scenarios might they be useful for? I'm going to want to have Meretskov working closely with the group, since he won't be on the Brandenburger, maybe on the rocket infantry, but that's a stretch, saying a lot. So now you know you have a role you want to get filled, and you have your eyes on a couple of generals. How do you decide which is the best value? Well, I mentioned before, who do you think would be more competitive in the long term? How expensive would it be to get a infantry commander and upgrade him all the way up until a bronze general, and upgrade them all the way up until the point that they would be more like a silver general? And at that point, wouldn't it just be more economical to get a silver general instead? And that only applies to generals that can be trained. If you're in the mid-game, value is important. So you'll be looking primarily, once you pick up Rommel, initially pick up Nimitz and Dornitz and in Rundstedt and Konev. Brook was a good pickup. Vegan was a good pickup. I recommend picking up them early. Guderian, of course. MacArthur's a bit expensive. Don't know if you can. I think MacArthur and Dornitz are pretty expensive. That'll be probably more for later mid game. You want to have these guys be at the core of your HQ because you know you're gonna keep them forever. And for a lot of the mid game missions, once you already have like 12 plus commanders in general, that should, or I'd say around 20 commanders, you'll be fine. You'll have your core established. Now, I got a lot of my generals during the Warzone era when it was worth having a lot of generals, so I stocked up on a lot of them. You know, I thought I'd be getting more use out of Higuchi. Now Yamamoto and Yamashita and Rundstedt are largely sitting idle. But they're still useful since, you know, I enjoyed playing the Conquest missions. I enjoy the Conquests. I do them in my free time. I do them when, you know, I'm feeling something different, apart from the repetitive grind of events. And it's nice to have these guys there. But if 90% of what you're doing does not require Yamashita, let's say, or Rundstedt. Rundstedt can do Yamashita's job just a slightly bit worse. He's not as mobile. And Yamashita has something like Ace Force's Bayonet Charge, just generally slightly better infantry commander than Rundstedt. But I mean, if 90% of the time you don't need Yamashita, then don't buy him. You know, I haven't actually seriously considered my own advice until this exact moment, so I'm seriously considering selling him if, you know, they don't expand the HQ limit and more generals that I don't currently have become more desirable. Then Yamashita might indeed be on the chopping block. Look at how many medals back I'd get from him. That would allow me to upgrade generals that I need more urgently, much faster. So don't forget that there's depth to your HQ. The depth, it's not just how powerful your strongest units are. You can see, like, it took me a really long time to get all of these gold medals for my top commanders because I kept on distributing them to my other commanders. I found that it was much more useful to have 5 3-tier ribbons than it is to have 2 4-tier ribbons in my day-to-day ventures. And you can see that my ribbons really have only started to stretch since I've shaken up my HQ. So bear that in mind. You're pouring resources in your HQ. It's like an investment. It's like a house. You have equity in your house now. The more generals you have, the more you have available to sell, but still be available in, you know, some niche scenarios. I can't, like, let's evaluate some of the generals I don't have. Or let's talk about why I got rid of some of the generals I got rid of. Used to have Vatutin. That was, you know, during the Warzone earlier event years. He's pretty expensive, only has a limited slot. You want to pay extra for the slots on generals because, you know, as I talked about on Govorov, if you don't have at least one, I would say that there's a holy trinity of abilities, and let's reset, you know, evaluating generals from there. There's a holy trinity of abilities that I would say. For tanks and infantry, it's the armor and their equivalents. Just do more damage, higher probability of giving a fatal blow, and blitzkrieg. These are very useful abilities to have in the early to mid game. Inferior victory and inspiration abilities are configured entirely for damage. Blitzkrieg is more for survivability, and these are just multiple purpose abilities that you want to have. For your tank commander, you want them to have at least 1 or 2 of this holy trinity in the early to mid game. That's why commanders like Bok are pretty useful since he has 2 of them. Plane fighting is really nice. It took me a really long time to understand mobility and terrain effects and bonuses, debuffs. Some of these are very useful. You'll find that Konev is still rocking. I recently swapped, not recently, a few months ago, or maybe like half a year ago or something, I recently swapped him over to jungle fighting because the jungle provides a strong defensive bonus for artillery. You want to be putting your artillery there anyway. So it's nice to be doing an extra 10, 15, 20, 25, or even 30% damage on top of what Konev might be doing, depending on what he is. But because he has jungle fighting and inspiration rather than inspiration and, let's say, inferior victory or something, or fighting spirit, I'm thinking of putting fighting spirit on one of my artillery commanders because artillery does get targeted a lot by things like tanks or infantry because it's generally squishier than other armor, than actual armor, rather. So it might be nice to put fighting spirit on the primary artillery commander, who is probably going to take a lot of damage, but still be dealing a good bit of damage out in return. It would be really nice if I could drop that Raider on Konev. It's so clear he's an artillery commander. Why would you make him an infantry commander? I understand that you get him really early on, but you can also get Rudstedt really early on. So that just seems a complete waste to me. Yeah, so you'll see that Hoth, excellent investment. He has 2 of these. He has a unique, or if they don't have, one of these 3 main abilities, have 1 or 2 of their other secondary abilities still be really useful, like Dominance or Retaliation. I recently swapped out Blitzkrieg on Bastiko for Fighting Spirit. Yeah, Lieb is useful since he has Rumor and Plane Fighting. These are useful skills that increase operational efficiency, increase damage output. Crossfire isn't bad. I don't mind having Crossfire on Zhang. For air, you want it to be Air Force Leader. For carpet bombing, you will see that all my air commanders have at least 1 of them. Fighting Spirit, again, another useful ability. Or we want you to have useful economic and industrial benefits for... you do want to have some commanders that are organized around group play. That's probably primarily Malinovsky for you. But I did until fairly recently also have Koenig in my HQ, where the Koenigo, who has Fighting Spirit, whose designs to be around allies anyway. So if you know that your unit is designed to be configured on group play, go all in on that. You don't want to have a really broad HQ in which everyone's a generalist, because generalists aren't best for every situation. You want some specialists. And so I have one, and if you're going to be splitting if you're like me and you're going to be splitting your team up into groups and you're going to be splitting your generals in the field up into 2 or 3 core groups, then you might want to have 2 or 3 generals that are aligned for group play. I sort of do that with Bastiko. That's my thinking around having an artillery commander, since I often pair my artillery with tank commanders. Having another artillery commander with Fighting Spirit, because that enhances the overall power of your group, not just that commander. But again, I only have 1 infantry commander. I could put down Koenig, but Malinovsky is useful since I can afford to keep him on the front line with these abilities. The Great Soldier medal is nice since I can switch that around if I'm in a conquest and Meretskov seems to be taking a lot of damage. I can swap that onto Meretskov, sacrifice maybe a bit of damage output, or maybe his Blitzkrieg chances. 1 survivability for another. Let's continue to talk about general evaluation. Why didn't I use Graziani? I had Graziani in my HQ a while back. I figured that Machinist, Ace Forces, all this are pretty useful, but that only leaves 2 slots for tank abilities, and that is automatically consumed by Armor Assault and Panzer Leader. You kind of need those things if you want your tank commander to be good. I had Patton before he was upgradable. Not a useful upgrade. I can't show you what he looks like now, but getting Patton out of the box, not worth it. Definitely not. You only buy someone like Patton if you're like an end game player with a lot of cash to spend. Rokossovsky is worth it. Since he has this, you can at least put down armor assault and one more useful ability. So I'd recommend picking Rokossovsky up if you're a mid-game player. You probably have him already. Julius has this ability. You could give him armor assault, but that's expensive. Upgrading armor assaults is expensive. Upgrading his armor is expensive. He's only a major. He would be most useful in the city. Is he worth 1,000, nearly 1,600 medals? Not in my opinion. Anders has some good abilities. I mean, these aren't the most useful, but they're not completely useless. You can combine these for half an ability. So you would have 2.5 abilities, but his mobility is low. Not quite worth it when you have alternatives like Hoth or Bastico. Same goes for Vatutin. These are decent abilities. That's nice, but you can't upgrade his mobility. He's only a captain. You can only give him one more tank ability. So you wouldn't get the most versatility out of them. Leclerc, available only in the city. Better options. Sun, counterattack specialist in terrain. When are you going to use that? Choikov, I have no idea what role Choikov is intended for. Maybe just for you to complete tasks and such. I don't know. Alexander, useless, since I do not consider these to be very useful abilities on an artillery commander. Sorry for the quick knock there. Pick Nagumo up, capable naval commander, but if you have someone like Raider who's just marginally more expensive but still better all around, then you would go for Raider. Unless you absolutely 100% you've hit a wall, you're desperate for any sort of progress. I had that point really early on in my career when I was picking up Nimitz. Like, Clark, what are you gonna do? Falkenhorst, decent infantry commander. I'd actually recommend picking him up if you're in the mid game or early late game. If you're in the mid to late game, I'd say Falkenhorst is a decent pickup if you don't have an HQ like mine. A lot of these generals you can tell immediately just aren't really worth picking up. I never really considered buying Mountbatten. I think that Nagumo is still probably better than Mountbatten anyway though. I always lose Nagumo. Yeah, he has the same ability, does more damage. I think Mountbatten's bonus is his mobility potential. Bradley, what's your role? And I mean for that value, Mannerheim's a good pickup. I have had him in the past. He's pretty good, but only have it. That elastic defense doesn't do him too many favors. You do not get a defensive bonus as infantry fighting in terrain, so that terrain bonus is a little limited. Limited mobility. You can only put on, infantry leader or something, and he is still fairly expensive. Now, let's say you've got a really good HQ. It's tough because the environment has changed. There's a lot more events. The conquests are tougher. There's a lot more stuff to do in the game. I had commanders like Teruchi, Kurabayashi. Tito is, a decent introductory economic commander to have. But if you're willing to invest that much money in upgrading economic expert for anyone, then I wouldn't put it on someone like Tito. You're going to lose 20% of those medals when you sell him, and you will once you get to the mid game or to the end game. Karar is a good backup infantry commander to have. You can put defense ribbons on them and make their health. You can upgrade their health via this manner. Just not like that right now. By upgrading whatever this purple bar that houses Runestedt's name is. And so, man, I just lost my train of thought again. We were talking about bronze commanders. They're good placeholder commanders. If you want, sometimes if you're playing against a diverse enemy in which they have multiple countries in your field, thinking Europe, in any sort of game mode when you have so many potential enemies taking your cities and such. It's nice to have a throwaway commander that you can put some defense ribbons on to hold the ground. Messi, if you're an early game player, you're starting off with him by default. Everybody loves Messi. Me and my homies love Messi. Let's hope he is that trainable general that comes in the next update. Badoglio is decent artillery commander. I think Terrucci is better since he has accuracy. I prefer accuracy. He is also cheaper, lower health, but also I think more useful ability. Not man, why do I keep going? That guy. I'm racist. Machinist isn't bad. Probably would prefer to have artillery barrage, but they both have shelter. Badoglio I think is like they have the same mobility. So I mean, at that point, I went for Terrucci because mobility is the same. Badoglio's really bonus is artillery leader and 1 extra artillery attack, slightly higher health. But you also have to pay 300 extra for him, and I don't really consider those bonuses worth it for me. But that was my reasoning in the earlier games. Tassigny, I mean, I don't find that much use in architecture. He has decent mobility, so. But he is also twice as expensive in Tito. Is only 1 level up further up on the economic expert. So I mean, I'd go for Tito if you want an early game economic boost. And I'd say, but at that when you're in the early game, those 170 medals to upgrade economic expert aren't really worth it. You can get a good way to picking up another capable naval commander, like Kuznetsov or Fletcher. I'd say Fletcher is probably even better than Kuznetsov. But Kuznetsov has rumor, which is very useful. So I'd actually say go for Kuznetsov. He is a bit cheaper. I think is a bit more mobile. Slightly more mobile. Same health. But he also has rumor now. So I'd go for Kuznetsov if you want an early game commander and you don't have Nimitz or something like that quite yet. And yeah, you need naval commanders to get naval commanders like Nimitz. So I'd say Kuznetsov, Fletcher, Kuznetsov, and then Halsey on the aircraft carrier are probably the way you want to go. Anything else? What am I missing? Elite Force, I discussed my logic behind ribbons. Economic management. I'm an endgame player. I have an abundance of resources. I do not remember really what it was like to have to upgrade technologies and stuff like that. I recommend upgrading tanks and artillery as soon as you can. Maybe some infantry mobility is useful to have. Those are some cheap upgrades. I generally do not prioritize upgrading HP. You'll find that I only have 2 marshals, 2 or 3 generals in my upper echelon of commanders. Okay, let's say one more. Who one of my air commanders has? Nope, none of my air commanders are generals properly. I only have 1 general in the rest of my infantry and naval tree. So you'll see that I only started upgrading health if you follow my HQ from previous videos, when I have absolutely nothing else to spend. I don't find the need for any generals to expand my HQ now or in the future. Maybe I'll save up a lot of medals before updates drop. I recommend you do the same. Don't make big purchases. Always save before you make big purchases so you can go back, do that before updates as well. Upgrade health. The very last thing, I find abilities and having depth to your HQ, having multiple roles that you can fit into any certain scenario, to be much more useful than having some generals with absurd amounts of health. When you're doing the damage output that Guderian and Bach can do, if you have generals with really strong abilities like Brook, if you have generals that are really survivable, or and you have looking pretty good on the ribbons, then you don't need health that much. You're relying on the abilities. You're relying on working together as a team, even when you have a play style that is a bit more diversified like mine. And I mean diversified in the operations of each mission. when you have multiple axes of advance. It really, and I think that's the biggest lesson out of this 45-minute long video already. I'll wrap up. Is think of the role you want to have. If you're desperate in need of a role to be filled, simply to be filled, then go for a better value commander like one of the silver or bronze generals. If you need really good output from a long-term role, then go for a silver or gold general, or maybe a trainable general. Try to have a general set of ribbons. Having a deep stash of ribbons is better than having a really shiny stash of ribbon, a smaller, shinier stash of ribbons. Think about what missions you're having trouble with. Are you having a lot of trouble with naval missions? Attack on Pearl Harbor isn't easy. Some of the naval campaign events get pretty hairy. So if you historically struggle a lot with naval missions, then it's maybe worth investing more into that aspect of the game, into that aspect of your HQ. If you're playing a lot of conquests, then it's maybe worth having more cheaper generals than fewer more expensive generals. That's my general advice. Thank you very much for watching this sort of HQ organization, prioritization, evaluation guide. If you learned anything new, if you got any tips or tricks, new perspectives, viewpoints, all that good jazz, then hit the like button. Maybe like my sultry tones, my diction, my composure. It doesn't take much to like something. Then hit the like button. If you have any questions about anything I've discussed, if you have questions about other materials, any suggestions that you want me to do, if there's anything that you think I can be doing better, then leave that down below in the comments. I enjoy hearing from all of you, my viewers. I respond to every comment. And if you want to see more videos like this, then hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. That's a nice pleasant ding. See, it's a little thing can cheer up your day. It would also cheer up my day, seeing that I got a new subscriber and a new viewer potentially. Thank you very much for watching. This is the Laidback Launcher signing off. 07 everyone. I shall see you in the next one.